Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin tonight with our continuing Decision 2025 coverage. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are not only running against each other to be the next Prime Minister, but they're also running in ridings that are virtually right beside each other in Ottawa. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The Nepean riding is in the west end of Ottawa and mainly contains a large suburb of Barrhaven. Chandra Arya is currently the sitting MP of the riding, but has been forced out by the Liberals to make way for Mark Carney. We catch up with Sham Shukla, a federal civil servant running for the NDP, at a coffee shop in Barrhaven. Shukla says the issues on the minds of voters in this riding include affordability and the federal government's return to office mandate.
Issues like housing, like transit.
He says the task of running against the Prime Minister is no doubt daunting, but feels the NDP is the best party to stand up for regular working people like himself.
It's to improve government and to ensure that a lot of local issues are not overlooked. I just go back to that. I think regardless of who the winner is in this riding, I think I'll be able to continue to highlight that and keep the focus on issues that matter to people in their everyday lives.
Green candidate Greg Hopkins is a longtime Barrhaven resident who works as a youth councillor. We meet him at the Matahoki farm, where he says he's running a low-key campaign. With the Trump tariffs dominating the campaign, Hopkins admits it is difficult to get important environmental issues on the agenda.
Sea levels are rising, forests are on fire, food's drying up.
As far as running against Mark Carney, he says he is taking the challenge in stride and happy to do it.
I'm thrilled to be able to run against a prime minister. So it's got my kids interested in politics now. My 15-year-old says, well, the next election I'll be 18 and I'm running. And I said, that's awesome. So this is it's pretty cool.
The Carleton riding is in the southwest part of the city, below the Nepean riding. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been elected in variations of the riding since 2004. In this election, a total of 91 candidates are running, most of them independents. We catch up with small businessman and Liberal candidate Bruce Fanjoy at his campaign office in Stittsville.
Overwhelmingly, the issue is the Canada-U.S. relationship and how we...
Fanjoy says the key issue of this campaign is who can best stand up to Donald Trump, and Pierre Poilievre is not up for the job.
Our parliamentary democracy requires everyone, even if you're Pierre Poilievre, to win your riding. And he's held this riding for a long time, has accomplished nothing, neither for the riding or for the country, and it's a record that he needs to be held to account for.
Out for some nearby door knocking, area resident Mohammed Chowdhury calls himself a swing voter, but says he is leaning Liberal because of the tariffs issue.
I was looking at the background and the strength in between our MP, who is PAP, and Carney, and it looks like Carney is much more deserved to be the next Prime Minister because of the tariff war that's happening in between US and Canada.
Different varieties of herbs, vegetables.
Mark Watson, also a small businessman, is running for the Greens, and we meet up with him at his acreage in Dunrobin. He says with climate change a key issue, the Conservatives and Poilievre are headed in the wrong direction.
This riding needs a better choice after 7 terms, and quite frankly, the planet needs a better choice. We've got, the leader of the opposition who believes we need to continue exploiting our fossil fuels to pay for all his ambitious programs. This is the industry of yesterday.
APTN reached out to Nepean Conservative candidate Barbara Ball and Carleton NDP candidate Beth Prochaska, but did not hear back by airtime. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Thanks, Fraser. As political candidates entered the home stretch with their campaigns, vying for spots in government, we take a look at a riding in British Columbia, where a Métis woman is hoping she gets voted in so she can have her say in Ottawa. APTN's Tina House has that story.
Nikita Steele is Métis and new to politics. She is running for the Green Party in the Vancouver East riding.
My platform is one of change. It's about dismantling the status quo and changing the narrative for Indigenous people, but also our brothers and sisters across Turtle Island. Federal policy impacts all of us. Any decisions made here impact me. I want to address housing. I want to address the opioid crisis and all of the things that have good intentions but have no follow through. I want to be the voice of people trying to push these things further.
So this is a big issue.
Jenny Kwan is seeking another term for the NDP. She has been the Member of Parliament for Vancouver East since 2015. And before that, she was the MLA for Vancouver Mount Pleasant for 19 years. Kwan says she wants to get re-elected so she can continue her work to fix housing needs across Canada.
We know that the Indigenous community is disproportionately represented in the unhoused population. That's why in the last Parliament, as the NDP critic, I fought tooth and nail to access funding and real resources for Indigenous, Inuit and Métis housing. And I was able to secure $4 billion for on-reserve funding and then $4.3 billion for people who are living away from homes. And this is the first time in Canadian history that we were able to force the federal government to acknowledge housing rights for Indigenous peoples wherever they go.
However, Kwan says that of the $8.3 billion, $300 million was distributed, but then the election was called, so the rest is held up.
So the job is not done, and we need to make sure that money flows.
And Nikita Steele has a message for voters.
I'm passionate, I'm tenacious. I'm not a professional politician. I'm a great choice for that. I've been educated in politics. I've taken a lot of other credentials that make me a viable candidate, and I really, really hope that people make the right decision to vote for me.
This is one of the most important elections, and I really urge people get out to vote. I urge that you support the NDP, support people who will fight for you, who will stand and be good allies, real allies of Indigenous, Inuit and Métis peoples, and who will not back down.
APTN extended an invitation to the Liberal candidate and the Conservative candidate in the Vancouver East riding, but we did not hear back by the time this story went to air. Canadians head to the polls April the 28th. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
There was tension in the press room during last week's federal debate in Montreal during question period. But as APTN's Savannah Craig reports, some also took issue with a reporter's question, stating unmarked graves and burial sites remain disproven and unproven.
Turmoil broke out in the press room after the federal English debate last Thursday night, following the announcement that the debate commission would be cancelling question period with the federal leaders.
I'm sorry to announce that there will be no scrum tonight with the leaders because we don't feel that we can actually guarantee a proper environment for this activity.
Frustration was directed towards Rebel News.
Look at all of you. What journalistic rationale is there to have this many people in the room?
With some journalists reacting negatively to questions asked by this outlet.
I blame you 100% for the Q&A being cancelled.
This follows unrest between some journalists during question period the night before at the French language debate.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party...
You know I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
One question by Rebel News reporter Drea Humphrey to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh focused on unmarked graves and burial sites.
These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not.
Singh refused to answer Humphrey.
Your question is another example of why I don't respond to agencies like Rebel News that promote misinformation and disinformation.
Kimberly Murray is the former special interlocutor to unmarked graves and burial sites. She disagrees with the Rebel News reporter.
It's so hurtful and re-traumatizing to survivors who are the living witnesses and who experience witnessing the deaths in the institution.
Murray's role was to independently engage with survivors, Indigenous families, and communities that are recovering missing children and unmarked burials.
There's photographs of children being buried. There's photographs of funerals taking place where no parents were there.
The Debate Commission denied Rebel News from receiving accreditation in 2019 and 2021. But both years, Rebel News took the Debate Commission to federal court, which allowed it to attend the debates. APTN News reached out to the Debate Commission to confirm why Rebel News was granted accreditation for this debate. It did not respond to our request before our deadline. Canadian Association of Journalists President Brent Jolly says his organization is monitoring the situation.
This isn't just about alternative media. This is about building an alternative universe where some of these ideas and myths or theories are advanced, and the sort of disinformation environment that we're seeing spread on a whole host of topics, including, residential school denialism.
APTN News reached out to Drea Humphrey for an on-camera interview to clarify her position, but she insisted on only providing a written response to questions supplied ahead of time. Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
And a reminder that APTN News will have extensive coverage on election night, Monday, April 28th. Our coverage here will kick off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. APTN News will have reporters spread out across the country, including at the headquarters of Liberal leader Mark Carney, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Creason and I will also be joined in studio by the former president of the Métis National Council, Cassidy Caron, and Truth in Politics panelist Jennifer Leywitz. Negon Sinclair will also be joining us from Toronto. Nouvelle Nationale host Kim Sullivan will head up our coverage from our Ottawa studio, where she will be joined by McGill University professor Veldon Coburn and former Enoch Member of Parliament Peter Itinawar. Our Decision 2025 coverage begins at 9 p.m. Eastern on APTN. You can also stream it live on our website, aptnnews.ca. Time for a quick break now, and then our Truth in Politics panel is here to discuss the life and legacy of Pope Francis. Stick around. Welcome back. The Chief Coroner of Ontario recently met with the families of two Mohawk men from Tyendinaga who drowned in 2015. The meeting followed an APTN Investigates report last year that challenged a key police theory. It's all part of the ongoing investigative series Secrets of the Bay, with Chapter 4 coming out this Saturday. Here's a preview.
Another winter has almost passed, and I'm back in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Back at the home of Tyler Marickel's parents, and they're waiting for me in the garage. Because in just a couple of hours, there's a big meeting with the Chief Coroner of Ontario.
We sure haven't slept a whole lot. Our brains are just going, so.
You're still living in it every day, aren't you?
We still get up 3 o'clock. We're in the discovery.
We get up, me and him both wake up at the same time. We figured that happened at around 3.
Mm-hmm.
We wake up every morning between 3 and 3:30.
A never-ending nightmare, replaying on a loop. It drives him to find out the truth about how Matthew and Tyler's cell phones both lost connection with a nearby cell tower at exactly 3:09 a.m. 13 days later, their bodies were found in these waters, known as Telegraph Narrows. Right where police had already searched, who immediately claimed the two men overloaded their boat with stolen fish and drowned. The coroner agreed and ruled it an accident. Case closed, but not for the families. What's going through your mind as we drive over there?
What they're gonna say to us. What the answer is going to be.
You can catch APTN Investigates Secrets of the Bay, Chapter 4, this Saturday night on APTN. A funeral will be held this weekend for Pope Francis, who died on Monday after 12 years as the head of the Catholic Church. Indigenous leaders have been extending condolences, and some will be attending his funeral in Rome. In 2022, Pope Francis came to Canada to apologize for the Church's role in the residential school system. Our Truth in Politics panel is here to discuss his death and his legacy. Jennifer Lewitz is the CEO of Pasqua Strategies, and Negon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Negon, Jennifer, great to see you as always. Negon, we'll start with you, as you've been doing interviews about the death of Pope Francis all week and written your own piece there. What are your reflections on Pope Francis?
Well, Pope Francis, not only the most progressive pope in global history, he is someone who was very generous and kind, and certainly pushed the church in directions that the church had never traveled before. And I think back to at the apology in July of 2022, when Wilton Littlechild offered him a headdress as a gift, his own personal headdress, not from the Cree people or from any other treaty chiefs, but and then he said, "Can I put it on?" And that certainly showed that Pope Francis, while not perfect, certainly was interested in trying to move the church in intriguing directions.
Jennifer, Pope Francis's trip to Canada to apologize and his hosting of Indigenous leaders at the Vatican are etched in our minds for sure. What came to your mind when you heard of his passing?
A little bit of sadness. Obviously, you know, this is a death that impacts, you know, the entire world because you're hearing about it so much. But there's also still that little bit of weirdness where it's like, well, what is our relationship with the church and even with Catholics in general, especially because of the history. So I've seen a lot of different takes on social media, especially from Indigenous people, that, you know, it is weird because you're seeing the entire world essentially mourning the passing of the Pope. But what is considered acceptable for us, and what does this mean for our relationship with the next Pope?
Negon, some Indigenous leaders are heading over for the funeral. APTN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak, Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand. Do you think it's important for them to be there?
Well, for both of those, for First Nations, the Catholic Church has a humongously large footprint in our communities. It was survivors who demanded, called for, kindly asked for the Pope to come to Canada because they care a lot about the church, and they care a lot about the fact that many of them are Catholic and hold those values very close to the chest. It's not Indigenous peoples who are or people. We are an people, and so there's a lot of reconciliation between that. Survivors have done, many Indigenous peoples have done between the church and traditional beliefs, and of course with the Manitoba Métis Federation, perhaps the closest group to the Catholic Church are people of the Red River Métis. It is David Chartrand who said that we should be doing more Catholic education, more teachings around Catholicism, because it is in many ways very deeply tied to Métis identity, not for all Métis, but for many. And so I'm not surprised at all that either one of them would go. And I think it's important that we do have leadership at these kinds of morning events because they do represent First Nations, Inuit, Métis people.
Jennifer, do you think it's important for the next Pope to continue in a similar vein? And do you think that that might be possible when it comes to reconciliation and things like the return of documents and other important items that the Catholic Church has, important items to Indigenous peoples?
I think it's absolutely important. We saw some pretty monumental moves coming from Prime Minister Harper during his apology and then followed by the Pope's visit to Canada. I think, we're at this pivotal moment where we have to keep reconciliation going, which means that we need to see tangible action. So I think it's not only going to be important for us to see the next Pope champion reconciliation and what it actually means for reconciliation with survivors and Indigenous people in Canada, but also on our end and how we're advocating for that through our leaders and what they expect to see out of the next Pope.
Jennifer Negon, we're going to leave it there. Of course, we're going to continue the conversation over on the Truth in Politics podcast, where we're going to talk about the election for the last time. But of course, we'll be seeing you both here on election night. Thanks to you both for being with us today.
Yeah, you much. Thanks.
The final Nation to Nation before Election Day airs tonight, right after the news. We've got a preview for you after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. D. Ross captured a moment from Long Beach near Tofino, British Columbia. Thanks for sharing. What a amazing looking spot that is there. You can send your photos to share at aptn.ca. The chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecasts. Starting on the East Coast, 15 with showers in Fredericton and Halifax. +2 in Kuujjuaq, 1 above with flurries in Nain. 16 in Montreal, cloudy, and 7 in Val-d'Or. 9 in Sault Ste. Marie, showers, and 11 in North Bay. Rain and 14 in Thunder Bay, 13 with showers in Sioux Lookout. Sun's out and 12 in God's Lake, 16 under sunny skies in the Paw. Sun's out and 17 for Winnipeg, 18 in Dauphin. 17 under sunny skies in Regina, 20 in Saskatoon. 21 in Meadow Lake, 19 in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, 18 in High Level, 15 in Fort Chipewyan. Sun's out and 21 in Edmonton, a sunny high of 18 in Lethbridge. 18 under sunny skies in Vancouver, 23 in Kamloops. Showers and 18 in Prince George, 14 with rain in Smithers. -3 with snow in Old Crow, +7 in Whitehorse. Snow and -2 in Yellowknife, 3 below with snow in Norman Wells. -10 in Sax Harbor and Pawlatuck. 11 below in Chesterfield and Whale Cove. Over to our Ottawa studio now, where Fraser Needham standing by with a look at tonight's Nation to Nation.
Coming up after the news, with less than a week to go before Election Day, all the major parties have now released their platforms. We talked to Pam Pometer of Toronto Metropolitan University about how they rate on Indigenous issues. Hill Times columnist Rose LeMay also joins us to talk about her new book on reconciliation. And we catch up with APTN reporter Angel Moore, who all this week has been at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in New York City. All this in just a few minutes.
Good stuff. Thanks, Fraser. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. You can find more on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned. Fraser's up next. We'll see you back here tomorrow.